Awesome. Welcome back, everybody. Hi, Julia.
Hi, Sarah. How's your day going?
OMG, I'm feeling so good. I've been popping around to all of the breakouts. That networking session was so great.
Yes,
I really loved, I was like a little sneaker popping in and popping out, but I didn't want to miss anything that everybody was sharing.
me too. It has been the best day. I've loved going to the breakout tracks. I love doing the networking and going to each of the little tables and navigating those. It's been awesome. Everyone's had such good questions and just sharing like their truths and perspectives. It's just been amazing.
One of the things that folks have been asking is, will they be able to avail themselves of all of the phenomenal content happening in the breakouts that they missed? And yes, all of this is being recorded, so you all can, at your leisure, um, really enjoy the rest of the parts of the conference that you didn't get to participate in. But there's so many beautiful nuggets of information from every single panel and workshop that we've had so far today that I am really excited I got to pop in, but I'm going to go back and listen in while I make dinner later as I stir and cut my chicken and my vegetables, listening in on the rest of the pieces and just taking, I took a lot of notes in my notebook. It's almost full. And it looks like folks are super excited and have been having a really great day so far. How are folks liking Socio? It's such a fun new platform. I hope that it does give us a wee bit different experience than Zoom, in a different way to, I know some folks in the policy maker track were in Zoom, so still a little throwback there. Well, we have just this beautiful fireside conversation next, and then Julia P and I will be back to close us all out for the rest of the day. But don't worry, there will still be opportunities to continue to network throughout the remainder of the day. So if you want to keep meeting with folks, that'll be a great place for you to connect. And so without further ado, I'd like to invite Ana del Castillo, who is our Boston Fellow. And Ana has been serving as our Boston Fellow for the past 2 years. And she is also a student at Harvard Divinity School. And she is going to be bringing on a really dear friend of Ignite's, Monica Ramirez, who is such a powerhouse in her own right. And so this fireside chat will be focused on activism. And so let's bring them on.
Hello, we are here today with Monica Ramirez, who is the founder and president of Justice for Migrant Women. She is co-founder of the Latinx House, She Se Puede, and Alancia Nacional de Campesinas. And she does so much incredible work. So I first just got to let you know, Monica, that I am just so excited to be here with you today. I started following you on Instagram years ago, and you are one of my sheroes and idols. So just to be able to do this fireside chat with you, I have chill bumps, and I'm just so excited.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited to be here in conversation with you too. And, Ignite is one of my favorite organizations. I've been a friend and partner of Ignite's for a number of years before the Dear Sisters letter ever broke through and all of the craziness that's happened over the last few years. So just really thrilled to get to share some space with you. And thanks for following me on Instagram. I always wonder, are there people out there? I'm glad to hear there are.
There are, and I'm sure everyone who watches this, go follow her on Instagram if you want to stay connected to the a million things that you're doing. But to introduce myself, my name is Ana del Castillo. I take she series pronouns, and I'm serving my second year as the Boston Ignite Fellow. And I will be leading us through this fireside chat today. And I thought that the perfect first question to start off with is just if you could tell us a little bit about your work and what brought you, what was that moment or the story that brought you to the amazing advocacy work that you're doing today?
Well, my work, as you said, it's varied. When people kind of look from the outside at my work, they're confused because they feel like, how's it possible to have so many different organizations and initiatives? And in my mind, it's all really connected. I'm fighting for the civil and human rights of the Latinx community, of migrant women and people. I've spent the majority of my career, first as an attorney, as a litigator, fighting for the rights of people through litigation. My focus had been for years trying to eradicate sexual violence from the workplace, and specifically the sexual violence that farm worker women face. And, with time, as an activist and as an organizer, I just kept, you know, figuring out that there were all these other tools available to us to be able to make social change. And so over time, my work has evolved to include different kinds of tools and tactics. And so now I use culture to make change. I use, arts and art activism. And, the law is an important tool, but it's not the only tool. And so that's kind of reflected in the work that I do and in the different strategies that we employ across the organizations that I've started. And how did I get here? Well, I sit in Fremont, Ohio, or what is now today known as Fremont, Ohio, and I'm the daughter and granddaughter of migrant farm workers. So my family used to travel the country picking the crops that we eat, and eventually settled out here in Ohio. And so when I was growing up, my parents, because my siblings and I are the first generation in our family that did not have to migrate for the purposes of work. And so my parents really took it seriously in terms of their role to educate us about the privilege that we had. And so from a very young age, I was learning about what is social justice, and specifically what are some of the biggest challenges that farm workers face. And that kind of created the foundation for the work that I do today.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I love hearing about your personal story and that lineage of being the daughter and granddaughter of farm workers. And I know for so many Ignite women, our personal family ties impact the work that we do and impact our activism and organizing. So just amazing to hear about your personal story. And you talked a bit about using culture as this tool for social change work. And I know that a lot of Ignite women are so excited about She Se Puede. Me being one of them, I'm like so excited by this work and this new modern day place for Latinas. So can you speak a little bit about She Se Puede? And I'm particularly interested in like this coalition that y'all have built. So just all the people who are a part of it. Can you talk a bit about like how you even go about building a project like this and working with so many people?
Yeah, so first of all, stay tuned. Big news coming related to She Se Puede and our work. So, as a Latina, I think that for many of us, unfortunately, as we were raised in this society, we were told that there were things that we could do, and then there were many things that we couldn't do. There were things that were proper, and there were things that were improper. There were ways that we were supposed to behave, and there were ways that we were not ever supposed to behave, and so there were all of these like constraints placed on us, and many of those constraints were not only fabricated, but really limited our ability to dream and achieve and grow. And were based on misogynistic standards, right? And machista. There's a lot of machismo in our culture. We're not the only culture that suffers from machismo as an illness, but certainly within our culture, that's an issue. And so a lot of there were very specific gender stereotypes that were placed on many of us. And so I think myself and the other 9 founders of She Se Puede, some of whom you might know, like Eva Longoria and America Ferreira and Carmen Perez, who's one of the founders of the Women's March. So altogether we're 10. And we all sort of were raised in pretty traditional contexts and kept feeling like, we were breaking barriers. We've broken barriers in lots of ways. In many instances, we've been the first in our families and in our communities to do many of the things that we were doing. And while that was true, it still always felt like we were an afterthought. We as a community, we as Latinas, and in particular, when it came to civic engagement, there were, if there were any efforts at all to reach us, it was always like at the tail end, like 2 days before an election, all of a sudden someone would realize that Latinas mattered and they needed to hurry up and try to find a Latina to talk about voting, And so that was definitely America and Eva's experience, that they would be contacted to trot out on the campaign trail right before an election. And so I think it was just our collective frustration of this understanding that we know what we need and want. number one, and that too many people have taken us for granted, and too many people have tried to set standards for us that are not the standards that we actually believe that we need to abide by. And so in different conversations, we were talking about this, the 10 founders, and then we just decided that we didn't need to wait for someone else to build it for us. And we decided that amongst us, we had what we needed and we should just create it. So in January of, I guess, 2020, is that? Yeah, January of 2020, we came together and we just decided to go for it. So She Sip With is very young. We launched at the end of August. We're now one of the fastest growing platforms for Latinas in the country. And I think that, the reception that the initiative is received is very telling, because what it means is that there are other Latinas, like you, like me, like, the high school girl who watches my son, they felt like there was a void too. And so, I think we're something like 154,000 Latinas strong just on Instagram, right? And the community keeps growing. And what we're hearing from the community is that people want more. They want to be connected to each other. They want to learn about everything from health to accounting and finances to mental, wellness. And, so we've been trying to be extraordinarily flexible because we want to be responsive to what the community needs and wants. And so it's been beautiful actually to watch it grow. It went from this idea, and we built the concept very quickly. We put it out into the world very quickly. And it's one of those things which I think this is my message for those of you who are watching. First of all, like, if you have an idea, don't let anyone make you feel like it's a small idea or not important. And the other is, it doesn't have to be perfected in order for you to get started, right? Like, She Se Puede is very much a work in progress. We work on it every day. And we're trying to shift and move as we feel appropriate and based on the feedback that we're receiving. And I think that's good. And I think it's okay. And I think sometimes we hold off, and we kind of put the brakes on ourselves because our idea isn't perfect or we haven't sorted out all of the kinks. But I think that, a lesson for me, at least in this experience, is, first of all, we don't know what the kinks are going to be all the time. We can't anticipate that. And if we wait to perfect something, then we might miss an opportunity to build something really beautiful. So that's She Se Puede. It's a really special project. I love all of my hermanas who are founders of the project. We're very, very different. We bring very different things to the table. And but I think together hopefully we're representative of many Latinas across the country.
Yes, y'all have built something so beautiful. When this project was launched, I just remember, like, me and my friends were like, oh my gosh, have you followed this? Like, this is so amazing. So thank you for the intentionality and just sharing your story. And I love to hear about the 10 founders, because all of y'all are just like, if people are like, who do you want to be in a room with? I would say the founders of She Se Puede. Like, truly incredible group of women and just powerhouses. And
yeah, let me shout them out. I think everyone should follow them too. And I can tell you a little bit about their backgrounds, because that might be helpful to people. So I mentioned Eva and America and Carmen, which most of you probably know the three of them. But we also have Olga Segura and Alex Martinez Kondrecki. They're co-founders of the Latinx House with me, but they're also filmmakers, and Olga is an actress as well. She's from Mexico. And so Olga feels really strongly about making sure that we are bringing in immigrant Latinas to our community, and that we're making sure that our content, it resonates with immigrant Latinas, because that is part of her experience and the bridge that she's trying to build. And then we have Jess Morales Roquetto, who some of you may know. She's an incredible organizer. She leads Families Belong Together. She's part of National Domestic Workers Alliance. So she's one of the incredible organizers behind the project, as well as Stephanie Valencia, who created something called Eki's Lab. So all of the data that you see us sharing, all of the different polling that's been done, it's been done through her organization. It's a groundbreaking organization that's focused on the data that pertains to our community. It's very tailored and targeted. It's amazing. I love it. And she's a fierce leader too, who's been trying to organize across different entities within the Latinx community for a long time. And then Elsa Collins, some of you might know Elsa's work because she created an organization called This Is About Humanity. And she and her organization have done just such an important job documenting what's happening at the border. They've created a partnership with Jose Andres's organization to feed the migrants along the border. And they've been taking influencers and others to the border to meet the children and the families there. And I think their work is so important because there was a point in time in our dialogue as a country where, you know, people were demonizing the asylees at the border, and they weren't talking about them as humans. And so her whole project has been focused on humanizing these migrant families, and it's just such important work. So all told, we're 10, and it's quite a squad. So we'd love to have you in a room someday. We have to figure that out.
Well, so I love this story of hearing about the squad coming together, because what I hear a lot at Ignite conferences, and I know this one is virtual, so we're not all like pushed into a big lobby together, but I hear a lot of young women, part of the Ignite community, who have these ideas, who meet other women who they're like, oh my gosh, we need to like connect and innovate and create together. So what advice do you have for all of us who might have our own squad with the idea, but like, what's a good first step? And maybe what did the first initial idea when someone reached out to you, or maybe you were the one who was like, we need to create something. What did those early days look like?
Well, I mean, people reach out to me all the time about creating things, and I'm a serial social entrepreneur, so I'm always creating things. And I think that one of the most important things when you're creating something is you've just got to be really, really open. You know, the creative process is a process. And so if you come into it and say, like, I can only do it this way, or I only have this much money, or I only have this much time, when you start kind of placing limits on yourself, I think that then also limits the creative possibilities. So I think, you know, just imagine a blank piece of paper where you're just going to throw it up, all of the ideas up on the wall, and, you know, on that blank sheet of paper. And, you know, with time, as you refine the project or you find the product that you're trying to build, things will fall away because they won't fit or they won't make sense. But, you know, from the very beginning, you have to give yourself the freedom to be creative. And so I would say that's one. The other is, you know, when you're working with a group of people, people have very different life experiences. They have very different skills and talents, et cetera. And I think it's good from the outset to kind of identify like where people's interests lie, but then also what they believe are their superpowers, right? So if you're in the room with a group of people and, you know, someone might say, well, I love data, or I love research, or, you know, I'm a writer, or I love copy editing, like all of those things, whatever those things are, they can be useful to a new project or campaign. And it's good to kind of take stock of the qualities and skills that people have so that you know what you're working with. And it might be that there are some gaps and then you might have to bring more people in or consultants or something, but it's good to just take stock. And the other is don't put people in boxes. So just because somebody's like a terrific wordsmith, that don't make that be their only job, because they also be great at, you know, accounting or something else. And I think sometimes what happens, this happens actually to me quite a bit, where, and I push back a lot, where people will want me to be the spokesperson. Like I'm always the spokesperson, and sure, I'm happy to talk about whatever issue needs to be addressed, but you know, I have a lot of other things I like to do too. And there are a lot of people who could be great spokespeople, right? So in my team, for example, if media contacts us and they say they want to do an interview and they want to interview me, you know, I often say like, well, who else in the team wants to do the interview? Because I think it's really important as we're building organizations, and certainly as we're building movements, like movements are made of many people. And we need to make sure that people see that, right? And so if people only see one person all the time, I think that's actually quite dangerous for a project and for a movement. So, spread the love and don't box people in, because people might surprise you about the things that they want to try out or the things that they're interested in doing.
That's great advice. I love that. Be flexible, be creative, and don't put people in boxes. That's great advice. So my next question is about your amazing advocacy work for migrant farm workers. And I know that a lot of people have been thinking about farm workers, probably many of them for the first time due to COVID. And really, farm workers have been the unsung heroes of this pandemic, just making sure that we have food to eat and doing difficult work when they didn't have the protection that they needed. And so a lot of people are wondering, like, how can we advocate for farm workers if we're not necessarily from that community? And so my question, it is about farm workers, but also what advice do you have for people who might be watching, who are really passionate about advocating for a group that they don't belong to? What are some skills, or I guess ways that they can do that doesn't like overshadow the voices of the community themselves? So that's something we're constantly talking about at Ignite. And I wonder if you have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, so for folks who want to support the farm worker community who aren't from our community, I would say get local and get to know the people who work at your local farm stand, and figure out if there are farm worker organizations in your state. I'm sure there are. And so I would do the research, figure out if there are any farm worker bills that the people are trying to move, because actually in quite a few states across our country, people are trying to move pieces of legislation that relate to farm workers to try to improve our rights for our community. Most people don't realize that farm workers were excluded from basic employment rights over 80 years ago in our country, and those rights have still not been won. And so there are a lot of state campaigns to try to finally win rights, at least at the state level, for farm workers. There's no reason that our community should have been excluded. Our community was excluded because of racism. And we need to fix that. We need to correct that. And so in the meantime, look at your state organizers and organizations to see how you can support that work. And don't forget that even if you're not from the farm worker community, you're connected to our community because you benefit from our community every single day. I always say, farm workers do life-sustaining work, and that's true. We all eat, and we are sustained by the farm worker community every day. So remember that farm workers are a connection of you and you a connection of them. And we need you to keep talking about the importance of their work, even when we're not in a pandemic. People are trying to move away from the pandemic now and go back to what is quote unquote normal. And we have to remember that it was never normal to deny our community rights, and it cannot be what people consider normal going forward. I would say, how do you work with a group that you consider different than you, or maybe part that you're not part of? I think that probably the most important lesson we can all learn is just to listen more and to listen better, to listen closely, and to really take cue from the communities that we're trying to align ourselves with. I always say that when we're doing justice work, it's important for us to remember that we are on a journey with people. We walk alongside people, and some of us are in service to people. And as a servant to people and these justice causes that we're part of, our most important job is to listen closely. And it isn't always our turn to talk. It shouldn't always be our turn to talk. And I think that for those of us who have been given the privilege of a platform, whether that means you have 5 followers, or whether that means that you have 25 followers or 25,000 followers or whatever, that is a privilege. That if the fact that people are listening to you and looking to you, that's an opportunity. And I don't know if you had a chance to catch my TED Talk, but my TED Talk was about passing the mic. And so I believe that when we have the microphone, as people who are deep and good listeners, it is our job to pass that microphone to other people so that they can use it. People always say, and they say it to me, like they say things like, you're the voice for the voiceless, you're giving power to the powerless. And those are very, very well-intentioned things that people say to me. They're very kind things, but I always bristle at those things because everyone has power. It's just not everyone has the opportunity to exercise their power because of the obstacles that have been placed in front of them. And everyone has a voice, but we don't all have the opportunity to use our voices, or some of our voices aren't being amplified. And so I think that one of the best things that an ally can do is to listen closely and then don't speak for people. Figure out how you can help them speak for themselves. So if you have a church group that you're part of, invite people in to speak. If you have a club at your school, invite community members in to talk about some of their priorities and concerns. And, I think the more that we do that, the more that we make space for people to listen intently and to keep elevating their message, I think that we will do something that others have not yet figured out, which is to really find equity when it comes to allowing everybody in our country to have a platform. And that is possible. And we can each make that happen if we lend our platforms and if we pass the mic when given the opportunity.
Okay, so homework for everyone. Well, not even homework, just moment of joy for all of us is to go watch your TED Talk on passing the mic. I actually haven't seen it, so I'm so excited to watch it. And yeah, I love what you're saying, that listening is kind of at the core of allyship and is one of the most important ingredients of being an ally. And that reminds me of our CPO for Ignite, Tiara Stewart, who's also one of my mentors, once said that attention is one of the deepest forms that of love that one can give. And I thought about that and I was like, whoa, attention is such a form of love when someone just takes a moment to hold space and to listen. And I think is really beautiful and transformative. So thank you, Monica. I'm soaking it in. And also it's really sunny today. So I'm just having some good vibes over here. Okay, so I know we're getting close to time. A question I have for you is, what advice do you have for all of the women who are watching this right now who want to get involved in working either with farm workers or just joining this exciting movement for amplifying the voices of Latinas? What advice do you have for us? How can we get connected to the work?
Well, first, I would say just follow all the social platforms for all the different organizations that you're interested in. Certainly I hope that you'll follow Justice for Migrant Women, and if you're not following She Se Puede yet, or the Latinx House, I hope that you'll follow along. That all of those entities are providing information that I think is really useful and hopefully will be informative to whoever's following. But I do think it's important for us to get local, and so just to reiterate, if you can find the organizations that you are interested in your state and call them up and ask them what they need, find out how you can volunteer with them or work with them. I started working in the farm worker community, like my first job in the farm worker community. I was actually a summer secretary at the local legal services. I was answering the phone and doing intake for farm workers. And I just called them up and I asked them if they would hire me. And they said no. They said no like 12 times. And I kept going back to them over and over again. And then finally I wore them out and they hired me. So don't accept no. If you call them and they say they don't have a position, keep calling back. They'll eventually hire you. That's at least my experience. And then the other thing I would say is, maybe farm workers in the farm worker movement, that isn't the place where you want to start with your activism. And that's okay. Like that's where I've started. That's where I come from. But, just start wherever you feel most comfortable. If you're interested in climate, or if you're interested in children's rights, or whatever the cause is that you're interested in, just start there and don't feel like you are responsible for creating a global movement. Starting small, whether it be just learning about the issue or talking to your friends about the issue or getting engaged with an organization or even donating to an organization, all of it adds up. So just know that over time and cumulatively over our lifetimes, all the ways that we give and engage, they all add up and they all really matter.
I think it's so important to be reminded that we don't have to start a global movement, because that local work is so, so important. And I know it's something that Ignite really focuses on. Okay, so one more final question. I wish I could just talk to you all day, but you just do so much work that is benefiting all of us. So again, thank you for that. And I wonder if you could share what sustains you and wearing all these hats and being a part of all these movements. What is something that is sustaining you in the work and the call for justice?
You know, I move in this world. My heart is what moves me. My heart is my compass, and my heart is full because I have a wonderful family and I have wonderful friends, and that sustains me. And I focus every single day on the change that we're making. I don't think you can do the kind of work that I do, particularly the work that I do on violence, if you focus only on the pain. My work is really, really hard, and it's really, really hard on my heart. And so I can't focus there, because if I focus there, then I won't be able to continue moving. And so I choose to focus on the progress and the joy and the belief that every single day we're making a difference. And it's that belief that every single day we get up and we do the best that we can, and we have a commitment to justice and changing the world. And it's that singular belief that keeps me going. And, some days the change can be huge, and some days the change might seem insignificant, but at least I know every day we're moving. And, and that's all I can ask for. And that's what I hold on to, and it keeps me going.
Oh, so beautiful. Your heart is your compass, and joy keeps you going. Well, thank you so much, Monica, for sharing all this wisdom with our Ignite community, and just for being such a role model to so many of us. We really do appreciate all of your work, and hope everyone has enjoyed this fireside chat and connects with Monica and can connect with me as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Take good care.
Julia P., did you just feel like you were writing everything down? My hands are sweaty from viciously writing.
Yes, I was like furiously typing on my notes so I can remember so many. I think you said in the chat box, so many gems in that chat. Yeah. And Anna just did a truly fantastic and beautiful job of facilitating that conversation. And Monica was just so candid and informative. So that was just amazing. I'm like smiling so big.
Yeah, I think the big piece that I really there's so many pieces. We'd spend all day dissecting such a phenomenal conversation, but I think it's this really big component around movement building. We are in the middle of, this current movement of this wave that we're building at Ignite, of all of you, Julia P's of the world, who are stepping up to own their political power. And there's so much bad, and there's so much pain and negativity that surrounds us right when we wake up every day. And for humans that look like me, when we walk out the door, there are already so many things that are up against us. And so I think this huge component of how do we focus on the hope? How do we focus on the good to sustain us throughout these movements? Because that's all we have to keep us going.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. And the point, I wrote it down. Let's see. It was never normal to deny community rights. Mm-hmm. And that really goes back to the message of this entire conference. The time is now. We aren't trying to go back to the normal. We are trying to build communities and spaces that are inclusive and empowering for all. And I think that also goes back to another amazing chat that occurred earlier in the day with Rai and Kim. Yes, we don't have to wait for people to give us the power. We already have the power. And this whole day has just been so beautiful and communicating all those amazing sentiments. And I'm just so grateful for conversations like these.
Yeah, I'm just excited that this is how I started my Monday. I'm jealous for the rest of the millions of people that did not start their Monday this way. But I'm really also very excited that this was only the first day and we still have 2 really phenomenal days ahead of us. So tomorrow, folks, we have a fireside chat with JP Morgan Chase, one of our sponsors, and our fellow Alicia Smith will be in conversation with a super phenomenal human from JP Morgan Chase, Women on the Move. So that's how we'll kickstart tomorrow. If you really enjoyed networking time with our movers and shakers, don't worry, there's a whole new session tomorrow. And then I think if you haven't seen her name in the news, phenomenal Representative Park Cannon from Georgia will actually be one of our movers and shakers, a dear friend of Ignite. So she will be there tomorrow. So if you want to get some solo time or small group time, that's going to be a good opportunity. And then we're going to travel through 2 more rounds of breakouts on our campaign candidate, campaign operative, policy maker, community, or not community builder, community commissioner, and activist. So there will be more breakouts on that. And then our keynote speaker tomorrow will be school board member Bushra Amiwala. And so I'm super excited for all of those conversations and more connection tomorrow. Julia, anything else you're looking forward to for tomorrow?
Just echoing, I am so glad we have 2 more days. This day was so it was just filled my soul, and I cannot wait for Tuesday and Wednesday. I enjoyed getting to meet so many different people in a variety of networking spaces, and I'm just really thankful to have this opportunity to be here, and thankful for all the amazing leaders who have shown up to this space. So excited for the next 2 days.
Amazing. Thank you. And even though we are logging off right now, the networking, the app, and everything will still be live. So feel free to keep working on the different pieces that you might want to continue to connect with folks that will be open. And we will see you tomorrow. I'm going to get these times really, really well at 10:30 Pacific time, 12:30 CST, and 1:30 EST. So we will see you all tomorrow. Same Sarah and same Julia P. But have a really good day. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.